today I will be talking to you about evolution. Evolution is the theory that was created by Charles Darwin. The theory states that over time an animal will change to adapt to its environment to survive. There is such a thing called natural selection, which is like evolution, but it isn't. Natural selection is basically the survival of the fittest. A real-world example of this is white, brown, and black beetles on a tree being eaten. The white beetles are more likely to be seen by predators, and they are soon to die off. And then the beetles remaining are the black and the gray. An example of evolution is the Bumonia. The Bumonia is an animal which is a horse-like beast which has feathered wings and a horn. They are colored very strangely. Their manes are normally a bright blue or teal, and their fur on their body ranges from short to long and is always black. The horn and the hooves are always dark blue and silver, and the wings have feathers and are purple and pinkish. The Bumonia lived in a place very far into a different part of the world that was a big piece of land with lava rivers running through different stretches of the land, and it was very rocky on the little islands. The Bumonia had to move about to graze once they finished grazing on a certain piece of land, and the rocks were in the way. They slowly developed a small lump on their head, which over time elongated into a long horn. And they used this to push and pierce the rocks and move them about so that they could get to another place to graze. This was good up until the point where they had eaten all of the grass on one island, and they had to move to another island to graze. Slowly over time they developed these wings. And these wings would help them move over and above the lava rivers separating the islands. And part of the reason they were so discolored and weird and strange is because before they developed their wings, there was an underground spring that they drank from and it got contaminated, and over time the entire race of the Bumonia were strangely colored. This is Majestic Bumonia.
Alright, there were two theories before evolution. There was abiogenesis and biogenesis. Abiogenesis was the theory that living things came from non-living things. Biogenesis was the theory that living things came from living things. An example of abiogenesis would be that monkeys came from trees. An example of biogenesis would be that humans came from monkeys.
A man who helped to prove the abiogenesis theory wrong is Francesco Redi. He used the example of maggots coming from rotting meat. What he did was he put two pieces of meat in two different boxes, glass boxes. One he covered and one he left uncovered. The covered meat did not gain any maggots, but the uncovered meat was full of maggots by the time the experiment was over. This proved the theory that non-living things cannot produce living things, i.e. the example of maggots coming from rotting meat. There is also a theory of adaptation, which is where a species slowly over time adapts to its surroundings. An example of this is the Galapagos finch. Charles Darwin observed that some of the finches had different beaks, even though they were the same looking bird. And the reason they had different beaks is because they lived in different places of the Galapagos Islands, and that they needed to adapt to their surroundings in order to survive. Charles came up with the idea of adaptive radiation, which is related species came from one ancestor. Organisms over time will become immune to antibiotics and pesticides, which are overused. Evidence supporting evolution is found in the body structure of living organisms. Homologous structures have a common structure. Analogous have similar structures, but they function for different things. A species with a vestigial structure probably has an ancestor that had a functioning structure similar to that. In coevolution, two or more closely associated species, such as predator or prey, evolved together in response to their adaptations.
In convergent evolution, species that are not closely related but live in the same environment resemble each other. For instance, the flying squirrel and the sugar glider both have wing-like structures. Evolution, closely related species have different features because they responded in different environments. For instance, different types of dogs have different fur because of their climate and environment.
Survival of the fittest means that the weakest creature or part of a group of animals is most likely to die out because they are the fittest, meaning the strongest individuals are to live the longest.
Isolation.
Species is the development of species from geographic isolation. Evolution can occur when the genetic equilibrium is shifted. This can occur from non-random mating, genetic drift, stabilizing selection, directional selection, disruptive selection, and sexual selection. Also did immigration. Immigration is the movement of a species into an area, and emigration is movement from a species out of an area.
There are three types of adaptation. There are behavioral, functional, and structural. Alright, an example of behavioral adaptation would be flounder and how they bury themselves in the